Welcome to our Committee of the Whole meeting on Monday, July 26th. I'm Councillor Lorraine Allen, and I will be chairing our meeting this evening. All members of council are present today, and Director Costello is our acting CAO, and I'm going to ask her to just introduce staff that will be presenting tonight.
Certainly. This evening we have Director Art Manhire, Director of Community Services, myself, and we also have Julia Crowder, who's joining us this evening. She's our new Manager of Economic Development and Tourism. And she does have a report this evening too, but perhaps I could ask her maybe right now with the concurrence of council to maybe introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her background, and so we could all formally meet Julia.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Are you there, Julia? There she is.
Julia. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I've been here in the position for about a week, so still trying to learn everyone's names and set up some meetings with everyone and get integrated into the community, but I'm really excited. So I come from Smith Falls. I was born and raised here back after 20 years. I have 10 years of experience in economic development and about 12 years in the municipal environment. For the last 15 years, I've been working in Simcoe Muskoka. I worked for the city of Orillia, the town of Gravenhurst, and for the district of Muskoka. I was the last position before I came here.
Welcome. We're very happy to meet you, and you'll be doing a report later as well. Thank you.
We've also had Treasurer Koziel join, as well as Senior Planner Gredke, Madam Chair.
Great. Are there any amendments to the agenda before we start? Mayor Payne.
Yes, Council will recall in December, we passed a resolution providing support to Carabridge Community Support and their application to CMHC under the Rapid Housing Initiative for funding for a 28-unit affordable housing development, deeply affordable housing development on Chambers Street. And the federal government added additional funding to this initiative recently in the federal budget. And Carabridge is among the those that are able to resubmit applications for round 2 of funding. So only those that submitted applications in round 1 are eligible to submit application for funding under round 2. So there's $1 billion across Canada going out under this for the application-based communities. So Carabridge is hoping we would reaffirm our support to this application. So I'd like to add this as a priority item tonight so we could pass a resolution supporting the resolution that was passed last December.
Thank you. So we will add that as priority issue 8.6, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other amendments? Seeing none, is there any disclosure of monetary interest this evening? There are no delegations. I need a motion for adoption of minutes. Councillor Dwyer and seconded by Councillor Alford. The minutes of the April 26, 2021, June 21st, 2021, June 28th, 2021, and July 12th, 2021, Committee of the Whole meetings be received and filed. All in favor? Thank you. Passed. CAO and director's reports, I understand there are 2. And we just had an introduction to our Economic Development Manager, Julia, and I'm going to ask her to start.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Through you to Council. I just wanted to give Council a quick update on some of the initiatives that we've been working on. One is the tourism cycle feasibility study. So we hired a consultant to look at cycling as a tourism asset and where we are in town right now, as well as how we can better connect within the region. So we received that study and we're currently reviewing it. There's a number of action items that came out of that review, and that's been passed on to infrastructure for informing our active transportation study that's currently happening. The retail gap analysis as well. We were working with a consultant to review the mix of our current retail state, so products and services, and what commercial assets we have and where we have gaps. And that will help us inform investment attraction moving forward and into the future. The cultural plan as well was completed. but we, after reviewing, staff decided it needed further work as well as an action plan. So Amy, our communications coordinator, she's been assisting in developing that action plan, and we should have something soon to bring forward to council as well. And then our merchandising program actually launched on Friday, which was something that staff had been working on for a while. So that's a big win. And we had 20 participating businesses. So that's really positive in the community. Mayor Pinko?
So just adding my applause for the retail initiative and the swag that's gone out, and it's great to see that in the community. I was speaking to someone earlier who works at one of the stores and said they're already making sales, so that's having an impact already. So well done.
Yeah, and this was a community initiated project. We had a lot of businesses in the downtown and around town asking for swag. So it was really positive. Staff were able to kind of make that happen and get a grant in order to buy the initial swag items and work with the community. So there's 20 businesses that actually participated, and we were able to get out all of the swag that was purchased to all of those businesses. So there is no more. Businesses, if they do happen to run out, then they're going to work with the contractors in order to get more. But the positive part of that is the revenue is going back to our business community to help with recovery efforts. And then just another small win from social media side and marketing side. Becky has been working really hard with Amy on social media over the last 2 years, and we actually reached 2,500 subscribers on our Instagram. So shout out to Becky and to Amy on that. And that's it.
Question or comment? Go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Now, the Instagram's great. I recommend it to anybody that hasn't followed. I think it's at SF Town or something like that. But I had a question on the merchandising program. What are we measuring right now so that we can demonstrate the impact that this program's had in the community?
We're measuring, first of all, the uptake from the business community. So having 20 businesses participate is really good. And we're also measuring the uptake from the rest of the community. And really the revenue that's being generated by the businesses. So that's what the success of the program is going to show, is that there's value going back to the business community, and then they can continue on to sell those products and continue to generate revenue through the merchandising program. So it's not, even though we initiated the program, the town is not going to continue to carry it. It's going to be the businesses that will continue to push it forward and continue to sell merchandise.
Great. So at the wrap up of the program, we'll be able to see how much we spent on merchandise, marketing, staff time, how much business is brought in, and we'll be able to see what our return was on that investment. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, we can do that as part of our annual report.
Excellent. The second question I had comes to the communication with the cycling stuff that's been coming out over social media. I noticed some of the content isn't branded with the Town of Smith Falls branding, I guess. And I'm just wondering what the issue is with that, or why there's a discrepancy between that rollout campaign.
I'll have to look into it myself. I've only been on the job for a month, but from some of my understanding, Cycle Ontario, that is part of the initiative. So it's not actually a town initiative. The town is just helping to get businesses on board to help them integrate into the Cycle Ontario system, which they push out to more avid cyclists.
Great, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
I don't see any other comments or questions, so thank you, Julia, and welcome. It's great to have you as part of the team.
Thank you.
The next report this afternoon is with Director Manhire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few quick updates. We've met with public health that are operating the vaccination clinic at the arena, and they will be moving their vaccination clinic back up to the multipurpose room as of Friday. So we will be able to get in there and start putting ice out. We have sent out an email to all of our user groups around booking. Staff have started taking those, and things are filling up quite nicely. Right now, we're looking at the 16th being the first day back out on the surface. So if people are interested, they need to contact our booking people to book some of that space. The basketball court project for capital for this year, we've gone through our procurement process, and we have a contractor coming on site tomorrow to give us some timing in terms of how long they think it's going to take and their process. We'll set that up. I'll let the community know when we do have a timeline for it, but we do anticipate that the work's going to be done in the next 2 weeks. And that's the basketball courts down at Lower Reach. The tennis court building, just so the council is aware and the community is aware, we've had some challenges with that building over the last number of years. We've had an assessment done of it, and there's not anything that we can do with it. We've stabilized it, but we will be making plans to remove power from that building to put it on a separate kiosk, and then remove the building once we have done that. So we've reached out to get quotations on being able to remove that. Once we have our Parks and Rec master plan, we'll be able to identify how we can use that space that's freed up by the building right now. That's it. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I don't see any. Oh, sorry, Councillor McGuire, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Director Manhire, we've got a caution swimming advisory down at the 2 beaches, and I went down to check it out on Sunday afternoon, and it's really bad. There's feathers and goose droppings not only in the area where you get ready to swim, but also floating by in the water. Now I know the bacteria levels aren't because of the stagnant water, because you can see the goose droppings coming by in the current. I really think we need to do more there. This is the peak of the summer, and there's lots of kids still using it, even though it's under an advisory. But it's not sanitary conditions for kids to play in. So what are we going to do this week to clean that up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There wouldn't be a meeting without a question about geese from Councillor McGuire. We have actually brought staff down to clean, to rake it up as much as we can. We've got several projects that have been identified through a number of different sources this summer, and we have some funding. So we are looking at recruiting more staff to do that. And the plan would be to have a crew down there a couple of hours a day to sweep that up. I have consulted with public health, and they can't tell me exactly kind of what the impact is on the water, as an example, but the caution is up. They believe because last week when they did the testing, they do testing every Wednesday. On Tuesday evening, it rained and potentially washed some of the goose droppings into the water. In years past, they talk about the ick factor for it, which is really what we're trying to address. Is more the idea that we're creating a space that is a little bit more usable for people down there. It is very labor intensive to do, but we are looking to enhance that service along with a couple of other services that we're looking at down at Murphy Park. So we should have something in the next week or two to be able to do that. In the meantime, we do have staff down there as they're freed up from other duties to clean it up as much as we can.
Okay, thank you for that. We have, this afternoon, we have 2 correspondence items. Correspondence item 6.1 is from Crystal Lowry, Warden of County Council, Lanark County Council, asking that the current online model used by Upper Canada District School Board was developed to help during the COVID-19 pandemic and should not be a permanent option due to the adverse effect that it may have on sustainable rural schools. The second correspondence item, 6.2, was a request from Trinity United Church to add a rainbow crossing to commemorate Pride 2021. I feel, and I'm waiting for council to let me know whether they agree or not, but I feel both of these items are timely and should come back to us as a priority issue with staff report. Okay, I'm seeing nodding heads and thumbs up. So, all right, we will do that. Moving on to priority, or sorry, we have no in-camera issues. So we'll start with priority issue 8.1, and that's with Director Manhire and Dan Wojcik. So welcome, Dan.
Good evening, everyone. Honorable Mayor, members of council, town staff, I'm happy to be back this evening to give a progress update on our project for Town Hall Phase 3. Can everybody see my screen? Great. So we've been working in the background since our last meeting at council, and some councillors have been privy to some of the developments of our project through their involvement with different municipal committees. So we're here tonight just to inform the public and all of the other remaining members of council of the progress that we've been seeing on the Phase 3 of the Town Hall renovation project. So here's a brief agenda of what we're going to be presenting tonight. So we'll take a look at all of the work that we've done to date and where we stand today. We have a revised design, revised floor plan that we've incorporated some of the comments we've received through this process in order to improve the design and address some shortfalls that have been brought to our attention. We'll take a look at the accessibility aspects of the project. We have gone to the advisory committee, so we'll talk about that and how we've incorporated all the concerns we've heard there. We also will talk about the impact of the heritage defining elements of the building that we will see through this project. Take a quick look at the project schedule and then discuss the next steps for the project that we see. So to date, we've completed our consultations with corporate services staff. These will be ongoing through this process, really. As we complete more iterations of the design, we'll present them back to them for their feedback. We are completed our site investigations with our sub-consulting team, the mechanical, electrical, and structural engineers, who are currently writing reports about the existing conditions that they've observed on site. We're using some of that information to develop the existing conditions drawing. So we've actually been able to draw the structure of the building in quite a bit of detail, and the mechanical electrical systems as well. We've been developing the schematic design through this process, which you've seen a bit of. We've already come to council once, so we're coming back again to show our progress. And we've been to Municipal Heritage Committee and Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee as well. So since those meetings, we've continued to develop the design and incorporate our findings and the comments and feedback that we received. And that brings us to a council presentation, or a committee of the whole presentation this evening. So as I mentioned, we've been working on the design with Director Manhire and other town staff to sort of better incorporate some of the concerns and the comments we've received. Accessibility is always at the forefront of all the municipal projects we do, and this project is no exception to that. So here in the building, here's just a snapshot of a rendering that we've completed of the front of the building. I'll see that subsequent renderings later in the presentation. But through this project, we hope to greatly improve the accessibility of this piece of the town hall, which is especially important to the public. Through the project, we will be implementing a universal washroom on the second level, a barrier-free reception on the first level to serve corporate services, barrier-free ramps and door operators, which can't see the ramp here, but you can see a door operator and all of the sort of pieces that go along with that. So these are tactile warning surface indicators that we're showing different parts of the building, and improved entrance and exit stairs. So here's the entrance stair, which you can see is a great improvement, a totally barrier-free threshold here. And then there's an exit stair that many of you may have never been in that is at the rear of the current council chamber, which is in terrible disrepair and needs to be brought up to code as well. In terms of the heritage of the existing building, we're not having a tremendous impact on any of the character defining elements of the building, but we hope to do a little bit of renovation, restoration of some of the parts that have fallen into disrepair. So on the second level, we recognize that there was a tremendous amount of space above the existing ceiling that we saw, or that is currently there. So through this design, we're proposing to raise that ceiling as much as possible in order to reinstate some of the grandeur that was once the second floor of the town hall building. need to replace all of the existing windows. Here you can see all the windows, the sills are all wrought out of these wood windows. So we're working on acquiring some samples for the Heritage Committee of some windows that we propose to reinstate through this project. Also, there are these sort of plywood faux windows at the top of the building that we have recognized were once architectural louvers to provide ventilation to the attic space. So we're proposing to replace these with something that's more historically accurate than sort of plywood with these little vents on the bottom. A lot of the sort of architectural woodwork and trim around the building also needs a little bit of a facelift, but nothing major. So we'll be proposing to kind of repair that and reinstate pieces through this project. And finally, we have found some artifacts, some interesting street signs and other pieces of Smiths Falls history through this project. Specifically the old street signs, ceramic street signs that we found. We really hope to incorporate those back into the interior of the project in a really exciting way for this town to see. So I'm just going to jump right into some of the changes that we've made in the plans. On the first level, there's not a tremendous amount of difference from what you've previously seen. Here in a plan that we took to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, you can see some of the sort of barrier-free features that we're incorporating, that we were highlighting in our drawings. You can see a piece of the new ramp that comes directly off of Beckwith Street to provide a fully accessible entrance, and then a new reconstructed sidewalk with a few stairs, but with all of the tactile warning surfaces as well. One small change that we were able to achieve through our investigations was we realized that a vault at the back, or sorry, cell at the back of the prison, or the old police offices, so it was a former prisoner cell. We can remove that in order to create more usable space, more accessible space in the facility. It wasn't original to the original facility, so we deemed that we could actually remove it without any impact on the building. On the second level, as we see the sort of greatest change from what we had previously presented at council. So last time we were here, we heard that the formality of having a sort of raised council chamber table would be preferred. So we've implemented that back into the design. We're trying to really, we also heard from Councilor McGuire some comments about symmetry in the space and the architectural design. So we're trying to achieve that through this design as well. And then just slight changes in the configuration in order to accommodate sort of barrier-free ramps up to that new plateau, and any of the changes that occurred to accommodate that sort of shift of the Avery room, a slightly smaller in-camera meeting room, and just a slightly different configuration for the universal washroom. Here we also have sort of a entrance lobby or vestibule into the council chamber that we see as a sort of mixing point for the community in post-pandemic days, post-council meetings. Should be quite a nice gathering space for the community. So here we have some renderings of what that entrance sequence would look like. So a fully accessible entrance sequence into this building. There is about a 2-foot change in grade from the sidewalk or from the street up to the ledge of the door, the threshold of the door. So we have to mitigate that in some way. So we're proposing a sidewalk in keeping with the walk up to the front door of the town hall that was completed in the last phase. Some barrier-free or some OBC and AODA compliant handrails. This is representative of a barrier-free door operator, which could be struck and the door will open automatically. And then here's a different view of that. When we were at Accessibility Advisory Committee, we received a very great comment to reverse the existing swing of the door, which would make an improved situation for users of the building as they address the front door. So that's something that we've incorporated into our plans. And here we're just shrouding the ramp with some vegetation in order to improve the kind of curb appeal of this whole situation. But now, as a result, we would have a fully accessible entrance into the town hall building, and then access into an elevator. So we've also been kind of working away on preliminary designs for the interior of the council chambers. The caveat with this work is that not very many staff have seen this to date, but we are proposing to go to a community consultation, and this will be presented to the public and council and members of staff for their comments and revisions again. But here you can see a slightly elevated platform and this sort of horseshoe, a shallower horseshoe configuration for the desk, and quite a large or taller ceiling in this space. We propose to actually be able to kind of reinstate some of the windows that have been bisected by an existing stair by dropping that stair, and incorporation of sort of all AV and technology that would go in a new council chamber. We're showing existing elements like the doors that are currently in the council chamber that are sort of beautiful piece of carpentry to be reused and through this project. And in the back corner here, so we've been able to establish a very symmetrical design for the council chamber desk. And in the back corner here, you see this door, hidden door that kind of will take the councilors back into the in-camera meeting room. So this takes us to project schedule. It's pushed a little bit further ahead than it was the last time we took a look at it, but we are still in really good shape in terms of progressing the drawings and the package. So with the endorsement from council, we'd like to continue this project in preparation for a tender-ready set of drawings that we could use to achieve or to obtain construction funding subsidies. Of course, through that process, we'll be back at council in order to present our progress again. And right now we are preparing a piece for corporate services, the CBO, and a review for the fire department as well, in order to kind of knock off a lot of this involvement and comments at an early stage of the project, so that we can avoid any delays later on through this process. So the next steps that we see is continuing to develop the design and generate some more visuals in keeping with the ones I've shown this evening, and engage the community in a community consultation session. We're still not totally sure what that will look like. We've become very adept at engaging the community virtually through the pandemic. So depending on what the future holds on that front, we will be able to address the public in any way that needs to happen. We'll be continuing internal consultations, as I mentioned, with fire and building services, and moving towards the development of a tender-ready document set that we can use for pricing more accurately. As I mentioned, lining ourselves up for eligibility for construction funding subsidies like the Green and Inclusive Community Fund through Infrastructure Canada, and being in a position to tender the project on the market later this fall. So that's where we stand today, and I'll open up the floor for questions and comments at this stage.
I'd ask David to put us back so that we can be on the screen, Dave, so I can see my colleagues, please. Thank you. Are there any, oh, sorry, Councillor Dwyer, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I was really pleasantly surprised at how many of the attributes that Council had talked about in our last session were able to be accommodated in the redesign. I think it really reflected a lot of the major points that we had raised, and I think it's a great example of how you can kind of go back to the drawing boards and find a solution that meets the expectations of the majority of council. So thank you for that. I wondered, looking at that last picture, two things came to mind. One is what we're proposing to do with the doorway that leads into Director Costello's office, because I know that was originally the entrance to the police department. I mean, it's drafty in the winter. I can say, as somebody who has sat in that office before, but also it's a really unique feature, and I'd hate to see it go. The second point about scope of work is what's going on with the hose tower, because that isn't quite as interconnected as the building as perhaps it could be, and perhaps even would be functional as part of the exit stairwell. So is that included in the scope of work, or will it be shortly?
So thank you, Councillor Dwyer. I'll insert that question about the doorway first. We're proposing actually to infill that door as part of this project, not to remove the opening of the door, but to infill it in some way. A lot of what we're trying to achieve is in sort of energy efficiency through this project, and that is not contributing to the energy efficiency of the facility at all. In keeping with that, our eligibility for subsidies is measured against the efficiency for the building. So at all costs, we're trying to improve that wherever we can. The remnants, or the fact that there was once a door there, will be evident at the end of the project. So we're working with the client group to better establish those needs and what the look of it will be. Secondly, the host tower, we haven't identified it as part of this project. In the last phase of town hall renovation, we stabilized the entire host tower and replaced thousands of bricks, which was quite an undertaking. The remaining scope of work on the host tower is to clean it now. As you notice, like a lot of the bricks have a lot of sort of black residue and they're not very clean. So they need to be acid washed. But I can say that the host tower has been stabilized, so structurally stable. So it's no longer, it doesn't pose the same threat that it did in the last phase of the project. We would love to be able to incorporate that into the project. I think it's going to depend on where we land in terms of the costing, and that's going to come as we develop the tender documents. So I would say, I would defer to Art on this one as well, but I would say that that's my understanding.
Go ahead, Director Manhire.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Good question, Councillor Dwyer. We had received some feedback from the Municipal Heritage Committee on the windows and doors finish for the host tower. We have been farming that work out to try to get quotes. At this point, the quotes are significant in terms of their overall cost. So what we're looking at now is, with the development of this plan, is there some synergy here and being able to incorporate the work to be done, still to be done, as Dan highlighted, in the phase 3 project, to see if there's some cost-effective synergy here.
I would say that, Madam Chair, in the last phase, there was a lot of urgency in terms of stabilizing that host tower, because it posed a threat to safety and also a risk of failure. So town councillors and staff should be aware that that's no longer a threat.
Okay, thank you for that. I know the Municipal Heritage Committee is looking at that as a very important part of our heritage walking tour, and it's an important asset for us. So it's wonderful that it's been stabilized. I have some other people waiting though, so I'm going to ask Councillor Brennan now, please. You're next.
Thank you. Very, very exciting. I'm really excited that we're going to have an accessible chamber, and our staff are going to be, I don't know, more comfortable, or just in a normal work environment as opposed to what it is now. And that's the best part. And also that we're going to have an elevator. The only question I have is, and in the renderings, I realize these are not the final renderings, but for the chamber itself, what we have here is a picture that is to me modernistic and in fact kind of cold. And I know, can you confirm? And the best part of the council chamber, it's going to be you know, able to virtually stream meetings, which is exciting. But the actual aesthetic look of it, this is not the final rendering. Of course, we're going to talk to the public, and there's elements of the chamber that date back many, many decades, and I would hope that maybe we could keep that sort of feel to it, and at the same time modernize it.
Certainly. I mean, as I mentioned, this is our sort of broad strokes for the design, and I think we really owe it to the town to take this to public consultation and get their feedback. Some of those wood textures that we're showing in those images are contemplating taking pieces from the existing chamber that we can. And that's something that we'll definitely look into through the consultation process.
And we'll replace the carpet too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The taped carpet.
Absolutely.
Councillor McGuire, you were next.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks a lot again, Dan. It's every time you come, it's a great presentation. So I appreciate all the pictures. I never have to do any research to try to dig up pictures to answer questions with your slides. So I appreciate it. On the Church Street facade, we don't really have a rendering of that yet. So I'm really hoping that as this evolves, that the Municipal Heritage Committee will get one last look at it before the final coming to council. With the first picture in your presentation, I think we've got 2/2 windows up there, and it was suggested by a member of the committee after last meeting of the Municipal Heritage Committee that potentially there was a screened in or some kind of an open window in there in the summertime, and then in the wintertime a storm would go in and block the draft. So they were thinking maybe a 2/2 would be the most appropriate there, but overall we still need to see those windows designs that we talked about of the materials, and I don't think we've confirmed the original layout of the proportions compared to what it used to be and what it could be now, because I'm not sure the renderings really have they been checked against that.
The renderings are maybe a bit distorted, but I would say that they're representative of the drawings that we've measured from site, the scans we've done on site. Certainly, we'll put together a package of more detailed drawings that will be taken back to Heritage Committee for consultation as well. Some of those features we'd like to draw in a lot more detail, like the louvers that we were talking about on the top 2 panes of the. We're investigating with some fabricators right now about how to replicate that in a very durable way that requires almost no maintenance. So those are some details that we're still working through in our design development, and we will definitely draw those elevations for you because they're very important to the building. And those will be brought back to council and to Municipal Heritage Committee as well.
Good.
It's great. I think we've got a great opportunity to kind of rebuild that relationship there, because I think for the host tower, we really thought that was a phase 2 project, and it just keeps going on and the price of things keep going up. So that's excellent. For the stone, if we're cleaning the brick, I think it'd be great to see the stone cleaned on the town hall as well, because we've got these white granite columns that are a key part of the architecture of the building, but I don't think anybody notices them because they're so stained. So if we're getting out the acid wash, I think it's the time to get it out. And it's going to give it, like, if we're doing a complete overhaul, now's the time for that fresh look for the outside. The barrier free is great for the council chambers, but I'm wondering if we're going to be able to use the in-camera room for barrier free committee space. We're still at a shortage of that kind of 15 to 20 person sized room. We've got a small room in the ECDev Center. We've got a large room at the arena. But we have a lot of committees that are 10, 15 people, and there's just nowhere comfortable to host them. Is that going to be a dual purpose function of that space right now?
Yes, certainly that room is fully barrier free on the entrance and all the aspects of the design of it. I would say that a 15-person assembly in that room might be a little bit big, but the new layout of the council chamber would support moving the chairs out of the way and having a much larger meeting than that for members of any committee. The second floor has been designed very carefully to be accessible, and we'll continue to improve that through the design development as well.
Great. And 2 more. Second last is the council ceiling. I really like what you're proposing here for an idea to talk about, but I'm wondering, does that eliminate the opportunity to take the heritage features in the ceiling and bring them out, or is it an either or thing there?
So that it's not an either or, it's just those round features that we had shown previously land right in the middle of the wall that's dividing all those spaces. We also need to somehow provide insulation in that ceiling if we want to leave the attic space open to ventilate. So we're anticipating that we're probably not going to be able to reveal those features through this project.
All right. And the railing that's shown here, I think it'd look great in the skate park maybe, but I'd like to see just something maybe with vertical slats, a little more suitable for the prominence of the building, maybe something like at the post office. And I'm wondering, is painting included in this rehab? Maybe Director Manhire, is that in the scope here?
Through the chair, painting of the exterior, or what do you?
Yeah, like the trim and the soffits up top.
Absolutely, yes.
Great. So if that's included, we can see in the first slide from Dan that it was originally black, and I'd love to see that black come back because I think it's just really going to bounce off the granite and the limestone and the white in the windows. So those are my 25 cents, I guess.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor
Thank you,
McGuire.
Chris. Thank you,
Thanks,
Councillor McGuire. That's good. And it's now Mayor Panko's turn. Go
Sure.
ahead, Mayor Panko.
Thank you. And like the rest of committee, changes look great. I think it's a very exciting opportunity for all of us and for the community. Two questions, Dan. I guess one, if we go back, I believe that so the stairs are being, I guess, recrafted, redesigned, and rebuilt. Obviously, I hope to meet current code, which I guess would be a bigger tread and probably a shorter rise and a different angle there. As you know, quite steep now. Just wanted to confirm that. And secondly, can you speak to the HVAC improvements as well? That's part of the project. Understanding we went through an energy audit with Honeywell a few years ago, and obviously our systems are old, antiquated, not very efficient, and do not, I guess, leave much of the building, much of the staff needing space heaters in the wintertime. So can you speak to those improvements as well, please?
Certainly, Your Worship. The stairs that are existing will be replaced. They currently have like a set of winders on them, which actually makes them pretty hazardous, and it doesn't meet code anymore. So the configuration of the stairs now will be a short run up to a landing and then another run up to the second level. So they'll be much easier for in terms of accessibility and safety. And the HVAC system, in keeping with phase 2, we've already replaced a lot of the infrastructure for the town hall through that phase with much more modern and efficient infrastructure, and we've consolidated as much as possible. So on this project, again, there are some antiquated rooftop units which provide heating and cooling to the space. So we'll be replacing those through this project. And through some of the construction funding subsidies that we're pursuing, there's definitely a benefit to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions that the town hall will be emitting. So we'll be looking at this project through that lens as well.
Is that, I guess, is that consider air source heat pumps as replacing gas, or we're looking at still using natural gas?
Well, we would have to demonstrate a reduction in our impact, 25% reduction, I believe. So we are trying, I mean, in general, I think the trend is to move away from natural gas wherever possible. There's the Federation of Canadian Municipalities had a GHG reduction fund that has come and gone. But now it looks like the federal government is implementing similar subsidy streams. So we're looking at, where that makes sense in terms of long-term spending for the town. We can reduce that wherever possible.
Thanks, Dan.
Problem.
Okay, Councillor Alfred, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I do think that you've been very, very responsive to the comments that we made in our last meeting, and I just had a couple of questions. Namely, I'm glad to hear the creepy stairs are going to be fixed because they're very creepy. I did notice on the drawing, I see you've got the universal washroom now swapped out into a different location. Do I understand? So the in-camera meeting room still has the little office space that we talked about, though it's a separate for councillors or the mayor who wish to have meetings in that one little, I think is it 375 square feet?
Yeah, so we have an accommodation for like some desk space in there, like a counselor's lounge. If we, as we continue this design, if we need to segregate a private space there, we have the ability to do that away from the camera room. But right now we're showing like a workstation lounge and then a larger table for those in-camera meetings. Okay.
And is there? I'm assuming. I think we saw before that there's some provision for some like a fridge or some things that are up there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we have a kind of a bar sink and a kitchenette and some cabinetry to store stuff.
Okay. All right, that's good. No, I appreciate it. I really do like the treatment for accessibility at the front door and how that is softened by landscaping. But I think I won't go over some of the things that Councillor McGuire has said, but some of it, I look forward as we go forward in this to seeing it personalized to Smiths Falls. The drawings right now, as a concept, I'm fine with, but I'll look to see how that's going to reflect Smiths Falls' personality.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
McKenna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for the presentation. Could I just start off on talking about the community consultation? I think, let's just say it would be later in August or September-ish, because we want to get that input sooner rather than later. I think it would be possible, and I'll leave this to the town staff and yourself to organize, but I think it's possible to do a combination of virtual or online consultation, but I would like to see people have the opportunity to walk through a space and look at the renderings, the drawings, circulate around, ask questions. So if you could do a combination of that, I think it's time we started opening for some of those in-person consultations if possible. Just a thought. And secondly, if I may, Councillor McGuire raised an interesting point regarding the trim shifting from white. And I am looking at the picture. I can't tell if it's black. It's definitely not white. But I think to do that, we would have to do the whole complex, including the old central school, because it would look kind of odd. And the same with cleaning the exterior of the stone and granite. To do one of these matching buildings and not doing the other would look quite peculiar. So if the budget isn't there for doing both, I would suggest we go back to keeping it white, and then in the next iteration, or when our ship comes in someday, we switch it over to white and clean off all of the granite. But if it's not very expensive and we could do the whole thing, by all means do it now. But otherwise, I think our scope is getting quite a bit larger than what we had planned. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to say that we would love to have an in-person consultation. I think the idea of hosting something at the existing town hall is a terrific idea, where maybe there's some boards up with our designs, because I'm sure there are some people in town who have never occupied that space. So it would be important for them to see the condition that it's in today and the plans for the future. So we really hope to be able to do that. I'm not a huge fan of virtual consultations, but we've become pretty skilled at doing that through the pandemic. And on the painting front, I think, it's definitely something that we'll take into consideration moving forward. And your comment about a scope creep and budget creep is appreciated.
I think that's it, Dan. I just want to add to what my colleagues have said by saying that we really appreciate how many different groups you've gone to and taken time. I sit on the Accessibility and the Municipal Heritage Committee, and I know that my colleagues on those committees really appreciated that you came and listened and are really hearing their needs. And the fact that we're going to have an accessible town hall is wonderful. And I look forward to this all moving forward. I also look forward to the consultation, because it would be interesting to see what people think. Like Councillor Brennan, I love many of our older features, the heritage features in the big room upstairs, as much as some of it's awful, the tacky carpeting and other things. The windows are nice, and there's so many aspects of that. And even, I'm getting fond of the, where we sit, and it's old, but it's been there for a long time. I think it's original to that room. I think it would be kind of nice to keep some of those things and not have it so ultra modern. And I know that was just a rendering. So we look forward to seeing more of this come forward. But again, thank you so much for all the hard work that you've been doing on this.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Allen. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been great to see the town evolving and these committees evolving with it as well. And it's a pleasure working with the town always.
Good. Thank you very much. Okay. Moving on, we're going to have priority issue 8.2 now, Beckwith Street Renewal Phase 2. It's a financial strategy report, and it's with our treasurer, Kazil. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm here this evening on behalf of CIO Morris to apprise Council of the revised project costs for Beckwith Street Renewal Phase 2 at 5.8 million, and to provide a recommendation of a financial strategy to fund the project and going forward. So in the report, the 2021 out of budget recommendation is 916,000, and that's to be funded from the water and the wastewater capital reserves, both of which are currently in a surplus position compared to what our long-term plan projects. The scope of work is related to the underground infrastructure, and it's anticipated that that portion of the project will be largely completed by the end of 2021, with the estimated construction to commence in the fall. The balance of the work will be completed in 2022 and will require a 2022 pre-budget approval of 1.4 million, which will be transferred from the tax-supported capital reserve. And again, it's important to note that that reserve is in a surplus of about 824,000. So the remainder of that will be part of the 2022 capital reserve or transfer from operational into the reserve. So the remainder of the revenue sources, federal gas tax of 1.2, that is the 2021 top up that we received of 536,000 and the 2022 allocation. The connecting link, which was approved funding of about 1.9. OSIF formula based of about 238. That is carryover money. We have not received confirmation of any new monies in 2022. If that should happen, then that would take some of the emphasis off the need for the tax supported capital reserve transfer. And then also long-term debt of 200,000, which is part of our projection in the long-term financial plan. And staff recently also submitted another application for further funding through the Canada Community Revitalization Fund. So if successful, the maximum grant for that is 750,000. And staff reached out to see when the anticipated announcements in that, and they did say this fall. It's important to note that these are construction estimates only, and actual costs will be fully known after the award of the tender. So with that, I'll pause and answer any questions you might have.
Councillor Alford, go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. No, I'll be supporting the staff's recommendation on that. I think 1.3, given that we have funding sources for 4.4 of the entire project, and the potential, if the CCRF is successful, to roughly cut that in half with the 750. So yes, I'll be supporting staff's recommendation on this one.
I'm seeing some thumbs up. Okay, thank you. And as always, thank you, Treasurer Kazil, for making this so easy. You are—
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Brennan.
No, it's okay. I was trying to
I'm sorry, I
raise
didn't
my
see
hand with the thing, and anyway.
Go
No,
ahead.
I'll support it. I mean, when you can leverage that kind of money, my only question is, in the report, and as we all know, you know, the design had changed through council's direction. And I guess my question is, the revised cost projection, is that more or less? Do we know?
It is more. The estimate for the construction is about 245,000 more.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I see no other questions, so that will be coming forward. Thanks so much. Priority issue 8.3 is procurement policy exemption, playground equipment at the Child Development Center report, and that's with Director Manhire. Go ahead, Director Manhire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the report is before you for an exemption to the procurement policy. We have gone out to tender with this work and received no bids. We did receive several companies that picked up quotations for it, but did not submit bids. And part of that is the scope of work that they do. And there's two very specialized projects. So we felt that it might be best to break these two projects out and then solicit quotes from various companies going through the 3-quote process so that we get value for our dollar, but still get people bidding on the project in a more targeted way. So we do have funds set aside for this. The issue with the projects right now is that the work at Thurber Street can happen at any point and is a fairly straightforward process. The work at Ross Street would have to happen during the time that there are no students in the school, which as parents can appreciate is running a little bit short at this point. So we would have to make special arrangements for that work to happen and do it reasonably quickly to be able to fit it into this year. So that is our hope for going forward.
Councillor Dwyer, go ahead.
Thank you. I sat in on the tender opening with Councillor Brennan, and I think the shock and awe of not receiving any tenders was apparent to all those present. These projects have been such a long time coming. I mean, our CDC relocated over to Ross Street almost 4 years ago. You know, the yard just sits empty and vacant, and I know that the staff there are making their best to try and find a way to keep the kids interested, but it's so evident that they need playground equipment. So I mean, as much as I have respect for the procurement process, I think in this case it makes so much sense to break the contract up and go to a quote-based system to try and get the projects done.
I agree. I am seeing thumbs up on that comment that Councillor Dwyer made. So it's such an important thing. And as you say, we need that installed before school year starts. And the children and the staff there have put up and tolerated a very empty lawn. So it's going to be a welcome addition to the school. So both sites. So I think you have your direction.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. 8.4 priority issue 2 to 4 Main Street West amendment application report, and that's with Planner Grinke. Hi, Carl, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. Staff are bringing forward a recommendation from staff and the Planning Advisory Committee pertaining to a zoning amendment application to accommodate some renovations to a mixed-use building on Main Street West. While obviously a very small development, the proposal did warrant consideration of a few sections of the official plan. As noted in the council report and the committee report, this applicant proposes to renovate a former contractor's office at the rear of the building on the ground floor to accommodate a barrier-free bachelor apartment. The general commercial C1 zone applies to most of the downtown core, and while fundamentally a mixed-use zone, residential development is only allowed as a right on upper levels of a non-residential building. While a handful of exceptions have been approved by council on individual properties over the years, there are good reasons why these base rules are in effect, and that includes the benefit to retain an interactive, vital, and public-facing streetscape with a critical mass of businesses to support each other and create a draw. Further, the zoning bylaw requires 1.25 parking spaces per residential unit. The layout of this property is somewhat unique in this context, with a wider laneway providing access to the existing residences and the rear of the adjacent commercial space, and has also led to an existing non-conforming situation with an apartment unit in the middle of the ground floor between the My Place restaurant at the street and a plumbing office at the back corner. The property owner, who bought the property in 2019, and his predecessors simply arranged parking on an as-needed basis for his units through agreements with other neighboring property owners. While the existing non-conforming residential unit in the middle of the ground floor has been there for many years, the current renovation proposal needs to be accommodated in the current zoning. The Planning Advisory Committee hosted a public meeting to consider this application, and there are no objections raised from any members of the public. The PAC recommended the approval of the application, and in their discussion, they zeroed in on the fact that additional housing was proposed in the downtown core, which was consistent with 2 of the recommendations contained in the housing task force, and in this case would likely be more affordable as well. While the task force recommendations regarding zoning policy have not made their way into policy, they do articulate an ultimate objective in principle. Planning staff do not take lightly proposals to allow ground floor commercial development in the core. However, our recommendation here is based on a few factors. For one, this proposed unit would be at the rear of the building with limited street impact. The existing restaurant at the street is proposed to remain, which is very important in the evaluation, and the recommended zoning language reserves commercial usage at the street. The functional integrity of the streetscape at this location so close to Beckwith would be retained. The unit at the rear appears to have limited visual profile for walk-in traffic from the street, and while examples do exist of back-end commercial units, it seemed that the unique layout of the building with the two-level decks and access arrangement can reasonably accommodate some flexibility in how the back end is used, which is consistent, we believe, with the guiding OP policies for the core. An additional barrier-free apartment unit downtown and within walking distance of many amenities brings value as well. While each planning decision is based on context-specific attributes, we believe the approval of this proposal would not establish an expectation or precedent that would guide future decisions on ground floor residential development, and this can be considered on its own. The upcoming zoning review will look at downtown core parking and building configuration standards as a whole, and it is, of course, way premature to predict what that might end up looking like. But as a single zoning application proposal at this moment in time, we believe it is reasonable and make the recommendation that that council approves the application. I'll pause there. Thank you.
Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks, Carl. This is it's very rare to get excited about ground floor commercial getting turned into residential, but this is the perfect fit. I'm wondering, are there any guarantees to the town that a unit will be finished on the interior as a barrier-free unit? Like, it's one thing to be able to get through the front door, but will the kitchen, bathroom, all that kind of stuff be accessible too?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's through you, Madam Chair. We don't have the mechanism through zoning policy to require that. That's an excellent question. I can certainly follow up with the applicant as to his intents and report back to you, Councillor McGuire, if that would be helpful.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm supporting the recommendation, and I see that the Planning Advisory Committee did as well, so that means a lot to me. To my colleagues on the Planning Advisory Committee, through you, Madam Chair, it's also a building that's kind of crying out for a community improvement grant on its facade. When things like this come up through the Planning Advisory Committee, is there an opportunity to, I guess, advertise or promote the CIP when things like this are coming up, and asking owners or managers, had you considered doing this? Does that, or is that just it's just they find out and do it some other way? It's just a question.
Councillor Alford, do you have a comment on that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I don't think it is part of the process. I have not experienced that as part of the process on the planning advisory, but I think there probably should be some communication links, and I think that may be in the form of Mr. Grenke, because he is both at the planning advisory and sits on CIP. So if there is something that comes through planning advisory that it would be, attractive for CIP, then I think we could probably handle it that way. That's my thought, but Mr. Grenke may have other thoughts.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we make it mandatory or force it on somebody. You're just saying, is there an opportunity there to educate or promote it?
Councillor Brennan, before I'll just let him speak, Carl, before.
Yeah, I mean, that's Councillor Alford's right. It's not really part of the process at planning. However, Planner Grenke is part of the CIP, and I know his due diligence is very, very good in terms of working with people. And B, and Wendy would agree, the people that are developing these properties are hyper proactive in terms of getting everything and getting all the information they need. And my bet would be they know all about everything available to them. But Carl's a great resource, and I know he's there for them.
Could you go ahead, Planner Grenke? Do you want to comment on that, or do you want to wait again?
Sure. Yes, I think no, I appreciate the point, and certainly these are conversations that myself and the planning coordinator do have with applicants and property owners who are working with us on various applications. And if there's an alignment with the community improvement plan, we certainly identify and point them into that direction if that's an application they want to make.
Mayor Panko.
And I'll just add my support to the staff recommendation. I think it's a great example of utilizing what is not great commercial space for residential purposes and adding to our much needed housing inventory. And while it may not be suitable for all commercial buildings, I would hope or think that there's probably other opportunities in the downtown area to take advantage of back entrances and on some of our buildings to create more housing. So this may be a start of more to come, and again, we look forward to working with Carl on making these things happen.
I have the sense that everyone is in agreement with this. I haven't heard anyone. Yes, all right, thumbs up all around. Thank you for bringing this to us. And I sit on the housing task force with the mayor, and it's certainly the kind of thing we're looking for. You know, we need this kind of availability of places to live for our citizens. So it's great that we can do this with this building. So that's that. Our last priority, oh no, sorry, second last one is the June budget monitoring, and we're back to Treasurer Kazil.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm here this evening to provide Council with a high-level update after completing June's budget monitoring. As indicated in my report, I'm currently projecting an overall surplus of about $466,000, most of which is the tax-supported budget. The majority of this stems from payroll expenditures of about $258,000, such as deferrals of students, current vacancies, the CDC, their emergency childcare was reimbursed by 100% by the county, and also shared services. As council may recall, we had some capital projects, the HVAC system at Lanark Lodge and new housing in Carleton Place to the tune of about $266,000 in our budget. We had such a good year-end reconciliation that basically took care of those two additional capital expenditures. The budget did reflect that. We had talked about, but it hadn't been confirmed at budget time, that we were going to go into payment plan to hopefully, so we didn't have to have that full impact this year. Now we will not require to have that payment plan. This will take care of that. So the other thing to note, if this trend continues with the surplus, our rate stabilization reserve is at its maximum target, or pretty much. So the majority of this will be transferred into tax supported capital reserve. So that's good news. That'll be used in other projects such as the Beckwith Street. So good news all the way around.
Councilor McGuire.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. This is excellent news. It's amazing. $500,000 almost. I had one question on professional fees. I was wondering why professional fees are higher this year by $13,500. Or maybe that's a question for CO Morris when he comes back.
Which department, sorry?
It's on page, what is it here? Page 12. Professional fees, ECDEV, $13,558.
To be honest with you, I don't think they budgeted. Oh, and it would be the communications coordinator. She falls under that.
Okay.
So
okay, so it's, yeah, it's not dues fees, it's
yes,
consulting fees. Awesome, that's great, thanks.
I think we are all in favor of going forward. Thank you so much for keeping us up to date, as you always do so well. And we look forward to hearing more updates in the future. 8.6 priority was added, issue was added, and that's with the mayor, and it's Care Bridge support.
Yes, thank you. Council is aware that for much of the last 2 years, the town's been working with Care Bridge with the objective of creating more affordable housing within our community. Last December, Care Bridge was the position they applied for Rapid Housing Initiative funding through CMHC based on the National Housing Strategy funding provided by the federal government. And like most applicants, unfortunately, at the time, I think 75%, they weren't successful due to the limited funding and the heavy number of applications. So recognizing that the funding wasn't sufficient, the federal government announced in this year's federal budget, another $1.5 billion would be committed to the Rapid Housing Initiative, with $500 million going directly to large cities and and 1 billion being available through through an application-based process. Only applicants who applied in December are invited to reapply at this stage. So it's very encouraging news that we were in the queue in December. So in conversation with Cambridge today, they've asked if we would reaffirm our commitment to the resolution we passed in December. And at the same time was hoping we could make some reference in there regarding what we had discussed in December regarding reduction in the parking requirement to 1 parking space per unit versus 1.25. And I know there's a planning process to go through for that, but the resolution has been drafted by the Director of Corporate Services that essentially speaks to this. So if I can read the resolution for a moment. That the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls supported an application from Cambridge Community Support to the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, in brackets CMHC, the Rapid Housing Initiative Phase 1, to provide funding for an affordable housing project at 44 Chambers Street in the Town of Smith Falls via Resolution 2020-12-269. Therefore, be resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls continues to support Cambridge Community Support in their application for Phase 2 funding through the Rapid Housing Initiative, and for the Council will consider the reduction of parking spaces required to 1 per unit at a later date. So introducing that as a resolution, I would like to see supported by council at the council meeting tonight, and looking for approval at COW, and we're ready to answer any questions that any member of committee may have tonight.
Councillor Alford, go ahead.
No real questions. I think Mayor Panko's, but I wonder whether we shouldn't give more of a more vibrant, not just over the parking spaces, but how badly this housing is needed. Whether we shouldn't give that some more teeth in the resolution, Sean.
The resolution that was passed earlier, and I have it in front of me, Councillor Alford, you read it. I guess there was nothing in there speaking to that. I've provided a letter of support as well, which does speak to some of the demographic details of our community, the limitations within community housing today, the number of people living below the low income measure, and things like that. That would
Okay.
be
Well, if that's in a separate, if we were making the case for our town how badly we need this kind of housing in another document, I'm fine with going ahead with the resolution tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Is everyone in favor of that? Thumbs up. Okay. All right, that will come
Thank
forward then at our council meeting. That's it. I need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Alford, seconded by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? That the committee adjourn its proceedings at 6:15 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. And we'll have a few minutes between our 2 meetings. 3 minutes, the mayor says. 3 minutes we'll have. Okay, thank you.
Welcome back to the special meeting of Smith Falls Town Council for Monday, July 26. We have all members of council present. I made a couple of amendments to the agenda. I'd like to add item 6, before item 6, reports. So there may be a few reports this evening. And also add item 7.2, which was a discussion regarding a letter of support for resolution of support for Caribridge Community Support, the Rapid Housing Initiative that was discussed in COW just a few moments ago. I'll ask for disclosure of monetary interest. I see none. With no delegations this evening. Adoption of minutes. We have none this meeting due to the nature of the meeting. Reports. I'll ask if any member of council has a report this evening. Councillor Alford, please.
Thank you, Worship. My report tonight is not for any of my current committees that I sit on, but rather for a committee that was formed just about 21 years ago. As the former chair of Old Home Week 2000, it is time for our former residents to begin making plans to return home in 2025. Smith Falls was incorporated as a village in 1854. The first Old Home Week was held in 1925. The second was held in 1950, and this is the program from 1950. It was then again held in 1976. It was moved back 1 year from its normal 25 years because it was Smith Falls' 150th anniversary. In 2000, that was 1976, and then in 2000, that was the third such celebration of our town, and 2025 will mark 100 years of that tradition here. As in the past, it is now time to strike that committee that will plan this celebration. And so as the former chair, I ask all of those interested in getting involved with that committee to reach out to me, and we can begin to form that committee. This is something that's very dear to the hearts of many in Smith Falls, and many have been at certainly the last two, and I hope we have some residents who were also here in 1950 that can participate. It's time to prepare to welcome home our relatives, our friends, our classmates, and former residents from around the world in 2025.
Great, thank you. We're all looking forward to that. Any further reports? Councillor McKenna, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Lanark Leeds Grenville Board of Health met last Thursday, and as you know, I'm the municipal representative on that. And I just, they're now broadcasting those meetings on Cogeco, which I've mentioned before. So I encourage the public to tune in to see where their tax dollars are going and to see what public health issues are at the forefront. And there are two, of course, the pandemic is the obvious one. The second one is the opioid crisis. In Lanark, Leeds Grenville, we have not escaped. Sadly, the damaging impact of opioid use in Lanark, Leeds Grenville, there's a number of deaths have increased. And so the public health, I just want to make that public aware of that. It's a very serious public health issue. And secondly, the board and the staff at the public health have starting to plan for COVID recovery. So both to the organization, the public health organization, and to the broader community. So there's a process outlined, which I won't go into tonight, but that there is a process being designed, and it'll start with some internal work at the public health department to see what has changed and how will the organization need to change as a result of COVID and the lessons we've learned. So we expect that this fall we'll have a preliminary report on how the organization will have to continue to adapt to a post-pandemic world. So the long-term implications. And that, I believe, will lead to a discussion about how the residents of Lanark, Leeds, Grenville are faring and what they will need in order to support them in their recovery post-pandemic. So it's serious business. The pandemic, it might be waning, but the impacts of that will be felt for years, if not decades. And organizations, structures, systems, and society in general is adjusting to that new normal. So the public health department will do what it can to lend guidance and expertise to assist the public in adjusting to the new world post-pandemic. So thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any further reports? Okay, move on to our bylaws. We have the first bylaw, we have two bylaws this evening. Our first is with Councillor Brennan, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Allen, that a bylaw to authorize an exemption to the procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting installation of playground equipment at the Child Development Center be received and read first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Allen, that a bylaw to authorize an exemption to the procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting installation of playground equipment at the Child Development Center be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Brennan?
We just discussed this at the previous committee of whole, and there's two projects. There's the playground at Thurber Street at the Child Development Center and also on Ross Street, and they were tendered out together. Unfortunately, we received no tenders, so this proposes to separate them out and obtain 3 quotes and to get these things done. So we're going to exempt the procurement bylaw tonight to get them done because we need them.
Thank you. Any further discussion? We have a third reading, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Allen, that a bylaw to authorize the exemption of the procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting installation of playground equipment at the Child Development Center be received and read a first time and read a third time and duly passed as, sorry, I can't read my thing, and numbered, signed, sealed, and numbered 10248-2021. I apologize.
No problem.
I was reading sideways.
Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Allen, that a bylaw to authorize an exemption in the procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting installation of playground equipment at the Child Development Center be now with a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10248-2021. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Councillor Alford, do you have our second bylaw?
I do. Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 6808-94 respecting lands described municipally as 2 to 4 Main Street West from general commercial C1 to general commercial special exception 22, C1 to 22. Be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Alford, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 6080-94 respecting lands described municipally as 2 to 4 Main Street West from general commercial in brackets C1 to general commercial special exception 22 in brackets C1-22 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Alford? Oh, you were unmuted before.
Okay. No, this would be a new ground floor rear facing at the building on at 2 to 4 Main Street, so behind where My Place restaurant is, and that the 1 parking space as opposed to 1.2 will be allowed with this change. This was recommended by the PAC 2 Council for their action. It adds to the housing stock. Adds to the housing stock, and it doesn't have any appreciable. Having residential on the ground floor is not really visible from the street. So this is one exception, a special exception that council is prepared to make about residential on a first floor in the downtown area.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Your third reading, please.
Yes, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 6080-94 respecting lands described municipally as 2 to 4 Main Street West from general commercial C1 to general commercial special exception 22, C1-22 in brackets, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10249-2021.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor Brennan. The bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 6080-94, respecting lands described municipally as 2 to 4 Main Street West from general commercial in brackets C1 to general commercial special exception 22 in brackets C1-22. Be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10249-2021. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. On to our miscellaneous motions. First is with Councillor McKenna, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alford, that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls endorse the Beckwith Street Phase 2 financial strategy identified in Report 2021-75, and that Council approve an out-of-budget expenditure of $916,325 in the 2021 fiscal year, and further that Council endorse a pre-budget approval in the amount of $1,398,819 for the 2022 fiscal year.
Thank you, Councillor McKenna. Discussion, please.
Yes, Your Worship. Treasurer Kozil, as you know, Council finalized the final design of the Beckwith Street Phase 2 recently. Staff went away and came back and presented us with the budget summary on how this will be paid for. It is inexpensive. It's around $5 million. So the town portion of 1.3 million or 1.4 million is about 43% of the cost. The rest is covered through provincial and other grants available and other applications. This 1.4 million may be reduced further if recent applications for new funding comes through. But at this point, and by staggering this project over this year and into next, we're able to divide up the money between this year's budget, which is mentioned in the report, and next year's budget as well, which we've assigned an allocated amount for next 2022's budget.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? It's moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Alford. The Council of the Corporation of Town of Smith Falls endorse a Beckwith Street Renewal Phase 2 financial strategy identified in Report 2021-75. The Council approved an out-of-budget expenditure of $916,325 in the 2021 fiscal year. And for the Council endorse a pre-budget approval in the amount of $1,398,819. Sorry, $1,398,819 for the 2022 fiscal year. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Our final resolution of the evening is with Councillor Dwyer, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Allen, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls supported an application from CareBridge Community Support to the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, in brackets CMHC, for the Rapid Housing Initiative Phase 1 to provide funding for an affordable housing project at 44 Chambers Street in the Town of Smith Falls via Resolution 2020-12-269. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls continues to support CareBridge Community Support and their application for Phase 2 funding through the Rapid Housing Initiative, and further, that Council will consider the reduction of parking spaces required to 1 per unit at a later date.
Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you. So unfortunately, CareBridge was not successful in soliciting funding in the first round of funding option. However, they have been shortlisted as candidates to apply for funding in round 2, which we are hopeful they may be able to secure. Affordable housing within our community has been a top priority of this council, as highlighted by the work that Mayor Pankow has led through the Housing Initiative and the Housing Committee. And with that, we are very, very pleased to endorse once again the application by CareBridge to solicit funding and hopefully create a fantastic affordable housing development within the town.
Thank you. Any further discussion? It is, go back here, sorry. Moved by Councillor Dwyer, second by Councillor McCann. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls supported an application from Cambridge Community Support to the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation in bracket CMHC, the Rapid Housing Initiative Phase 1 to provide funding for an affordable housing project at 44 Chamber Street in the Town of Smith Falls via Resolution 2020-12-269. Therefore, be resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls continues to support Cambridge Community Support for their application for Phase 2 funding through the Rapid Housing Initiative. And further, the council will consider the reduction of parking spaces to 1 per unit at a later date. All in favor? Passed, carried, thank you. Any inquiries or announcements? I just want to, on behalf of council and the community, recognize Bailey Anderson and for her incredible effort in Tokyo earlier today. I know she probably wasn't pleased with her time, but she represented our town and our country with great grace and dignity and incredible commitment as an athlete. And we are incredibly proud to have her as a hometown girl representing our community and our country at the Tokyo Olympics. And Bailey, we look forward to seeing you when you return, and we look forward to celebrating your success at a future date. Other inquiries and announcements? Yes, Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Your Worship, for drawing attention. You made one mistake regarding Ms. Anderson. She's now referred to as Olympian Bailey Anderson, and she will forever be known as Olympian Bailey Anderson.
Very well, thank you. Any other inquiries or announcements? No, okay, I'll seek adjournment, which is adjournment with this Councillor Alford, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that this council adjourn its proceedings at 6:34 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor Brennan. This council adjourns proceedings at 6:34 p.m. and stands so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council. All in favor? We are adjourned.